Oh, you haven't plugged it in, Tony. G'day guys and gals, and welcome to another Makita review here on Tools and Stuff. If you are new here, please consider subscribing and check out my other channels down there. If you don't like listening to my voice, I do one that doesn't have my voice in it. So that's called Voiceless Tool Reviews. It's down there, as is Builds and Stuff, which is kind of like B material that doesn't quite make it onto this channel. And also down there we've got Patreon if you want to help support me making these videos. And if you want your chance to win some of the tools that you see on this channel, I give away tools each month over there, so that's down there as well. Anyway, the topic of today's video are these adapters here, which I'm surprised when I tried to get them aren't more common. I thought these were sort of readily available, but turns out they aren't. I've talked about them in a couple of videos before, and today we're going to take a look at them. But I had to get them from Japan. I'm not sure what other countries actually stock them, if any of them stock them, particularly the 40 volt one, which is fairly new, obviously. But here on the bench, you can see we've got the 18 volt one and the 40 volt one. These are genuine Makita parts. You can also get a 36 volt one that essentially has two of these style adapters so that you can have two batteries inside a sort of holster that go to two of these adapters that go onto your 36 volt or 18 volt times 2 tool. But today we're just looking at these two, and if you're interested in them, there will be some links down in the description, but chances are you're gonna have to get them from Japan. So I'll put some affiliate links down there for sellers that I know and trust from Japan that I use to get my tools, and yeah, if you want one, take a look at those. Anyway, so what are they exactly? Well, they may not be what you think they are, but stick with me, hear me out, let me just explain what they are. If, for instance, you want to use this thing for a lot of routing, you've got a ton of stuff to do, you don't want to be changing batteries, you also don't want the weight of a big heavy battery on the top of your tool. This thing, much lighter than most of the batteries. So this adapter goes in place of where your battery would, pretty basic, clips on like so. And the other end of this cord goes to the actual battery. So this way you can have a massive battery like this, which as you can see is bigger and heavier than the tool. This does not weigh as much as this. And so if you want a heap of runtime, you can have this hooked on your belt and you can wander around routing to your heart's content for a much longer period of time than you would if you were putting the battery on the top, because you don't want to stick this ridiculous sized battery on top of your router, because like I say, the extra weight and the unbalance of the thing is not too comfy. I mean, that's pretty heavy. It's a good workout for the wrist, I suppose. So what this adapter allows you to do is move the weight around and change the runtime of your tool. Now, as I say, Makita only sell these by the looks in Japan, maybe a few other places. If they do sell them where you live, please let me know down in the comments. And another thing I want you to let me know, because Makita watch these videos, and I want to know whether you guys think this is a good idea, whether you would buy one, and what you would use it on. Bit of free market research here basically for Makita, but it would be interesting to know if other markets should import these or not. For the 18 volt, I don't think it's all that necessary, but for the 40 volt, as I'll show you, it is a bit more worth its weight. With the 18 volt, you're not going to be saving a lot. If you've got a 3 amp, 4 amp, 5 amp or 6 amp hour Makita LXT battery, they all weigh basically the same, within about 20 grams of each other, because they all have 10 cells in them. So the only weight difference basically is the changes to the board that runs the thing over time, and the addition of the LEDs that they've put on the ends of the batteries now. So the batteries don't get progressively heavier as the amp hours go up, unlike with the 40 volt system where they've changing the size of the cells physically, whereas in the 18 they're all the same size cells. But in the 40 volt you've got 18650 and 21700 cells, and you've also got 10 in some of them and 20 in others, such as this big bad boy. So let's do some weights and see how much you will actually save. Now I'm going to weigh two 5 amp hour batteries here. You'll find out in a moment why I'm weighing two. 622 grams. This is from Vietnam. That's where it's made. This one is made in China, 640 grams. So 18 grams difference. One of them is not fake. They are both genuine. They're made in different factories. They use different cells. One uses Samsung, one uses Murata, and they have slightly different board configurations. And the Chinese one, if you can see in there, there's some white, has slightly different, a slightly better LED display there for your battery gauge. But they're both genuine batteries. Don't let people say they're fake just because there's a few grams difference. Anyway, 620 to 640 grams for a 5 amp hour battery. What about our adapter? It's going to be a little bit tricky to weigh seeing as it's got a lead attached to it, but let's just have a wee squiz here. 203 grams, let's call it 200. So you're saving 400 grams, 420 to 440 grams. Is that enough for you to warrant having a cord going to your waist? Well, depends on what tool you put it on. If you put this on a nail gun and you're nailing up above your head all the time, well then that 400 grams over time is going to add up and fatigue you a bit quicker than if it wasn't that. But that's the most you're ever going to save, 400 odd grams. So nowhere near as much as you're going to save with this adapter. Let's see how heavy the Makita 40 volt adapter is. Looking about 230 grams, just slightly heavier than the 18 volt one. So that's 230 grams. How much are we saving with all these batteries? 2 amp hour, 694 grams. So around the 465 grams lighter than that. What about the 2.5? Coming in at 717. So we're looking at about 490 on that one. Then when we get up to the 4s, now the weight starts to really pile on. So we've got 1015 grams. Take 230 off and you've got 785 grams difference. That's starting to get noticeable. That's an entire battery. It's an entire one of those and more. So that's a big difference. Not quite as much difference on the new F battery because that's a little bit lighter at only 944 grams, 943, make up your mind. So about 715 grams lighter with the adapter. Now we get into the real big stuff, the 5 amp hour, 1.33 we'll call it. So that is 1.1 kgs heavier than using the adapter. And then the big boy, the 8 amp hour, coming in at 1.863 kgs. So that there is significant. That will save you 1.63 kgs, 1.6 kgs off the weight of your tool. That's huge. How huge is 1.6 kgs? Well, it's the equivalent of taking this entire multi-tool and more off your tool weight. That's only 1.4 kgs. So that, with the adapter on it, weighs less than this. So this adapter on the 40 volt system could be a big plus for some tools. But which tools? Rotary hammer drills are big heavy things before you even put a battery on them. This one coming in at just over 3 kgs without a battery. Once you put that behemoth 8 amp hour on there, where is it? There it is. Once you've chucked that on there, not only is it cumbersomely large, it's now 1.8 kgs heavier. So we're nearly at 5 kgs now for this thing. If you're only doing 1 or 2 holes, not a big deal. But if you are going above your head all day or with your arm outstretched, it gets pretty heavy pretty quick. So if you could take 1.6 kgs off that with this thing, that sounds like a good use for it in my opinion. Not only that, of course, there's the new router. If you chuck it on there, it's going to keep 1.8 kgs off the weight of your router, which can be good, especially if you're near the edge of something. You don't want it sort of pulling one way or another. And because you've got the lead on the top here that goes both ways, you can flick it over like that so that it's in the optimum position depending on what you're doing, what tool you're using, what application you're using this thing for. If you're down under and you are straightening walls in a house, for instance, you're using a planer a lot, going up and down walls. And chuck that on there, boom. Ton of runtime now off an 8 amp hour battery, no stopping, much lighter. Grinders chew through batteries super quick, but if you put this on here, we've now got a tool that's not going to be weirdly balanced by an 8 amp hour battery on the back. but you can have that 8 amp hours of runtime. Actually, I think that might be quite good. I tend to use this with small batteries because having that on the back is just not too good on the wrist. You want to be able to push down if you're grinding. When this thing's constantly pulling down the other direction, it's a bit annoying. So take that off. 1.6 kg saved. Bung that on. Now the weight is at this end, so just makes grinding that a little bit more easy. Now, some of you who are regulars of the channel and have watched me review other Makita 40 volt tools in the past that had battery fitment issues may now be thinking, hey Tools, hey, can we get around a few things now with this? Can we do some more tests? Can we fit some batteries on tools we couldn't fit on before? Well, let's have a look. This is the HS005G, the little 125mm or 5-inch circular saw where the front comes off. This comes off so you can flush cut hard up against a wall. Great little tool for removing flaws and stuff like that. But it only takes certain batteries. One of the obvious reasons for that is there's not a lot of room between where you put the battery and your workpiece if you've got this set at full depth. So you can't even put a 5 amp hour battery on there without it hitting the base. You can, however, put it on there if the tool is a little bit higher up. But there's another battery bigger than this, as you know, the 8 amp hour. Come on, you bastard, off you come. But the 8 amp hour has another problem. It physically won't slide on. There's nothing else in the way. It's not the tool getting in the way, but they've made it so there's something under here that stops you from putting that battery on, because all of the Makita 40 volt XGT batteries have slightly different rails. If you take a look at all these rails, I've talked about it in another video, they're all slightly different, and so they fit on certain tools and not other tools. It's not a big deal with most tools. There's not many I've found that don't take these big batteries, but that is one of them. I have another saw similar to that, which also has the same issue. So, can we get around that by using this? If we want that extra runtime and a bit of weight taken off the tool, can we use that with that? First of all, just make sure we can connect it to the adapter. Yes, of course we can. You've already seen that. And just to show you, this is all one unit. Okay. Boom. Right. Will this fit on the tool? It does. Now, am I going to blow something? Is it this battery just too powerful for this tool? Or what? All good. What about the other one you guys always ask me about? This 40 volt top handle chainsaw, which as you can see is kept in pristine condition, also has the same issue. You cannot put an 8 on. You can put up to a 5, no problem. Personally, I use this with a 4 most of the time just because it sits nicely and yeah, all good. Weight wise, you don't want too much extra weight with a chainsaw, especially this sort of nimble little chainsaw. But what if you want that extended runtime? Will it work with this? Because this is an issue with not only this chainsaw, but the most recent ones that I did a review on. You couldn't put the 8 amp hour batteries in there. They deliberately made it so you couldn't fit them in. Whereas with this, you could get away with it to get that extra runtime if you so desired. Let's spin this around this way so I can cut my arm off. Let's give it a whirl. Look, she works. Not do that too much, I'll spray oil everywhere. So, for those of you who wanted a get around to put the 8 amp hour batteries on without modifying your tools, there you go. I think it'll be quite good for outdoor power equipment in general, because they're heavy things usually, and they're the sort of tools you're using for a long period of time. A saw, you often pick up, you do a cut, you plonk it down, you go off and nail it to something. So you're not using a circular saw sort of all day usually. Some people will, I know, complain down there. But something like a hedge trimmer or a chainsaw you can often be using for hours at a time. So I think something like a hedge trimmer it would be perfect for, because yeah, stretching your arms out all the time with a hedge trimmer is annoying. It's should really take the cover off that, shouldn't I? Let's just make sure it's going to work here. It works. So that is a good use for it, I feel. Not only for standalone hedge trimmers like that, but also for like the power head. If you're doing a lot of sawing with the pole saw or the hedge trimmer, you're holding the thing out full arm reach and things like that, and above your head and trying to get up high and yada yada yada. Takes that 1.6 kgs off the weight of the tool that you've got to hold. So I can see a lot of guys liking that for OPE, guys that use these things all day, every day. Because this is another tool I usually use with 4 amp hour batteries and just change them out all the time, because putting an 8 on there just adds a lot of extra weight. So what do you reckon? Is it any good? Would you use it? What do you think the pros and cons are? I mean, one of the obvious cons is you have a cord. That means when you put a tool down and you want to walk away, you're going to either have to take this off the tool or unclip this off your belt. You don't necessarily have to have that on a belt, of course, because depending on what you're doing, say for instance, you're drilling a bunch of holes in one place and you just know that you're going to need a fair bit of juice, then you could whack this on a drill and just have that sitting next to you, do all your drilling, and yeah, not have to change your battery and have that reduced weight on the tool. So do you think the big gain of this is the extra runtime you can have without having the battery on the tool, or just not having the weight on the tool? Tell me what you think down in the comments. And if you go over and sign up to Patreon, I'm going to be giving one of these away over there, whichever one you want, the 18 or the 40 volt. Sign up for that and you can go in the draw. And let me know what you think would be good with one of these adapters, and I will catch you all on the next one next week. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. And is this the most reflective saw base you have ever seen? Look at that, man. It is mirror finish. So cool.